Welcome to First Byte, our Detroit Lions preview podcast. It is week 6. Your Detroit Lions are 4-1, facing off against the 3-1 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. My name is Jeremy Reisman. I'm the producer over at Pride of Detroit. You can find me at Detroit Online on Twitter. With me, as always, co-piloting First Byte is senior editor of Pride of Detroit at Ryan_POD, doing some great pantomimes right now. Ryan Matthews is here. How you doing, buddy?
Only available on the Twitch stream if you want to get on that. But yeah, I'm doing well. I'm happy to be here. I'm excited. It's another week of Lions football. And again, Jeremy, it's a reminder of yesteryear because it's creamsicle week.
That's right. An NFC Central showdown. And to help us preview Lions Buccaneers, we, as always, bring on a guest from the opposing side of the view. He is the vice president and publisher of Pewter Report. Scott Reynolds is here. Scott, thanks for joining us, man.
My pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I am excited about this one because, as I was telling Scott before we jumped on the show here, is it feels like a little bit of a barometer test for both teams. The Lions have gone up against one top NFC team. It didn't go so well. The Buccaneers have had maybe an up and down schedule where, you know, you get a couple NFC North wins, which if they're not against the Lions doesn't seem that impressive. But right. And then you get steamrolled by the Eagles, and then you come back and steamroll the Saints, and it's like, okay, who is this team? So that's kind of going to be my first question, Scott. Like, where do you feel this Bucs team is? Could they be an NFC contender? Is it still just growing pains, and we'll see where they are? They're going to be an inconsistent team all year. What are your thoughts?
I think we're going to find out at 7:30 on Sunday night. I really do. I think this Lions game, to me, is a better measuring stick than the Eagles' loss on Monday night was, because in my opinion, I don't think the Buccaneers are an elite team, right? They play the 49ers later this year. They're going to lose again. They lost last year with Tom Brady 35-7. I expect a similar outcome. The 49ers are just that good, right?
Yeah.
The Dallas Cowboys handed the Buccaneers a big-time playoff loss last year. This Bucs team is just not elite. But can they be good/very good? We're going to find out, because I think this Detroit team is a very good team. And so I put the Lions not quite in the Eagles class yet, but I think they're better than the Saints, right? So I think the Lions are kind of right here, and we'll figure out, based upon the outcome of Sunday's game, if Tampa Bay can be a really good team. And I think this Bucs team is going to get better as the year goes along, and we'll see. This could be the first game between the Bucs and Lions this year, because I do think both teams are playoff caliber teams. I would not be surprised at all if the Lions win the North, and I would not be surprised if the Bucs win the South. Right now, they're the current division leaders. So I have some reservations. I like the fact that this game is in Tampa. I think that gives the Buccaneers a better chance, not an edge, but a better chance of winning. If this game was in Detroit, I would probably say, yeah, this is going to be a loss for the Buccaneers. But it's creamsicle week. There's a lot of excitement. I know the players are jazzed to look good in those orange and white creamsicle uniforms with the Bucco Bruce helmets. And you know what the saying is: when you look good, you feel good. And when you feel good, you play good. So maybe that gives the Bucs a little bit more of an advantage on Sunday. We'll see.
Yeah, that's totally fair. And I think you're spot on in a couple of aspects, Scott, especially in the sense that I think coming into the season, the NFC North seemed like it was totally wide open. The NFC South totally seemed like it was wide open. So you have two teams that are kind of sitting at the top of their divisions right now, and they're kind of looking down and taking stock, right? And I think when you look at this Bucs team, you have this team that's in an interesting, I wouldn't call it purgatory, but it's just in this interesting transitionary period where you had the Super Bowl, you had the win, Tom Brady leaves, and now what, right? Like, do we tear it down? Do we rebuild it?
Yeah.
What kind of steps do you take from there? And I guess the biggest thing is Baker Mayfield, right? And like it or not, I think every kind of team's barometer starts with where they're at quarterback. And I think if you would have measured that in training camp, I think everybody would have said the Bucs are toast, right? I mean, there was enough film out there of Baker sailing passes and things like that, but that's not the Baker that we're getting in the regular season. Can you tell us a little bit about, where Baker has excelled and where you see maybe him growing over the season and maybe some of the shortcomings early on?
So Baker, right, he's thrown, coming into the season, he's thrown, I think, a couple picks now, but 64 interceptions from when he entered the league through last year when he was a Brown for a second, then a Panther, and then a Ram, right? And now he's a Buccaneer. So he's become a journeyman in 1 year. He's been on 4 teams within the span of 1 calendar year. So Baker Mayfield went from being the face of the franchise with the Browns to being a journeyman in just 1 season. That's kind of hard to do, but it happened. But I think it did a couple things. It humbled Baker, right? And he's got a kind of a perception for being this cocky, arrogant type guy. And I just haven't seen that. I think he's not full of himself, but he's full of confidence within himself. And I think that's where he's grown and matured into that version of Baker Mayfield. Dave Canales comes from Seattle, and everybody wrote the Seattle Seahawks off last year. They said, you traded away Russell Wilson. The Broncos gave you Drew Lock in return. You didn't draft a quarterback. I mean, you've got Geno Smith, a journeyman, and you've got Drew Lock. Good luck, Seattle, right? That was everybody wrote the Seahawks off. Well, what happened? Geno Smith, in a very quarterback-friendly, kind of easy to learn, easy to operate system, and he had the benefit of learning this, this offense the previous year behind Russell Wilson as the backup. So it wasn't even like Baker Mayfield where he's coming into this new offense. Geno Smith was in that offense for a full year, then was given an opportunity to win the starting job, which he did. And lo and behold, 32-year-old journeyman quarterback ends up becoming a Pro Bowler, passes for 4,000 yards, ends up winning Comeback Player of the Year award, and took the Seahawks to a surprise 9-8 wild card, team. And so I think when the Buccaneers, when they signed Baker Mayfield, they said, you know what? It's the same type of offense Dave Canales is bringing from Seattle, where even a guy like Geno Smith functioned at a very, very high level. And the perfect world would be if Baker Mayfield follows in those footsteps and he's more talented physically than Geno Smith. He has a little bit more of the it factor. And what if he became the 2023 version of Geno Smith? And what if the Buccaneers became the 2023 version of the Seattle Seahawks, where everybody's expecting them to tank for Caleb Williams, but all of a sudden they start winning some games? And I think that's what's happened so far. Baker Mayfield got a lot of those interceptions out of his system in Cleveland. And Dave Canales, from day one, and Todd Bowles has been saying it in unison, most important thing you can do is don't turn the ball over. Don't be the scoring guard. Be the point guard. Distribute the ball to Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, the playmakers. Let them do the dirty work. And you just be that field general. And I think Baker has really taken that to heart. And I think that's what's propelled his hot start and the team so far.
Well, you mentioned Dave Canales and the Seahawks, and I don't know if you know this, but Seattle's kind of the boogeyman around here in Detroit for the past 2 years. And this was brought up in Dan Campbell's press conference today. The offenses are obviously similar to what they did in Seattle and what they're doing in Tampa. Can you kind of just like explain the overall philosophy of this Bucs offense, particularly in the pass game?
Yeah, I think it's it's using some bootlegs, some waggles, rollouts. It's having structure within the pocket and some designed throws from platform, right? From getting rid of the ball quickly. That's what it's designed to do. The big shots down the field are going to come off play action. They're going to come off rollouts, bootlegs. And that's designed to buy the quarterback a little bit of time by moving the pocket, right? And allowing those receivers to get down the field. It's the exact opposite of what we've seen the last couple of years in this Bruce Arians vertical offense, which is we want to take the shots down the field, but we have to have that pocket hold up for, it's like a rodeo, like 4 seconds. You got to hang on for 4 seconds, Tom Brady, and then stand in the pocket and deliver a shot down the field to Mike Evans or Chris Godwin or Rob Gronkowski, whatever. So this is different in that there's so many quick, short, rhythmic throws. There's a lot of flood concept, which kind of, gets that short, intermediate, and deeper routes all within the quarterback's sight line. There's some really easy kind of check downs to the backs and the tight ends off of play action. So I think that's one of the reasons why Tampa Bay's offensive line, which is better in pass protection than it is in run blocking, has had some success so far, is because they don't have to pass block for long. We're not talking a rodeo where it's, hang on for 4 seconds. It's like 2 seconds. You know, I mean, a rodeo is really 8 seconds, but you get my drift here. It's literally, you know, just get in front of your guy and let Baker get rid of the ball. And so that combined with a little bit of a force-fed running game, and Tampa Bay is not really good at running the ball. They were the last in the league last year in running the ball, rushing attempts plus yardage. This year, they're faring a little bit better. They've gone from 75 yards a game to 87, so they're making some progress, but it's really been up and down, right? You had 120 yards on the ground against the Bears, and then a brick wall in week 3 against the top-ranked Philadelphia Eagles rushing defense. Then 114 yards last week or 2 weeks ago against the Saints. And all of a sudden, boom, you got the Detroit Lions bringing that third-ranked rushing defense, allowing 68 yards per game against teams. So we'll see how successful they can be against the run, or I should say running the ball against this Lions rushing defense this week. That's going to be a real big challenge. I know that the Buccaneers were very disappointed in how they performed in the run game against the Eagles. And I think this is going to be kind of like a do-over. Like, can you, against a big, physical, maybe not as talented defensive front as you faced in Philadelphia, but can you do that against a similar type of defense and scheme in Detroit this week?
Let's move to the Lions offense versus the Bucs defense. As I mentioned, Lions offense obviously humming along pretty good here, have been since the beginning, the midway point of last year, maybe even a little bit before that. Meanwhile, the Bucs defense struggling against the run. But this is kind of, I don't know. To me, it feels like another one of these things where maybe some of the advanced stats don't match up against the eye test, or maybe don't match up against the standard stats, where, you know, the Bucs haven't really been run over in any game other than the Eagles game, which is okay. The Eagles run over everybody. They have the best offensive line in football. Right. But they're 21st in DVOA against the run, 32nd in PFF grade, and last in run stop win rate, which is ESPN stat, which I have problems with, so I'm willing to overlook that. But what's your kind of assessment of the Buccaneers run defense? Is it better than it looks? I mean, we know they have a couple of really talented interior defensive linemen, so what's going on there?
Really, I think it's skewed, right? Because the Buccaneers have had a bye week, so there's only 4 games we're talking about. And in one of those games, they gave up 201 yards rushing, as you mentioned, to the Eagles, right? DeAndre Swift, I think, had 130 yards on the ground, 135, something like that. So I think it's skewed. I look back at the Saints game. They did a great job handling them. They handled the Vikings pretty well. The Vikings don't have a ground game since Dalvin Cook's been gone. And they did a good job controlling the Bears ground game as well. So I really think that's the outlier in the fact that you have a small sample size of only 4 games and you throw a 201-yard game in there. That skews the statistics a little bit, in my opinion. I think Tampa Bay's done a reasonably well job. However, having said that, this is a similar type approach, not a similar type offense, but a similar type approach, which is run the ball, use play action, right? And Jared Goff has been getting all sorts of flowers and props down here. Larry Foote, the co-defensive coordinator, even said that Jared Goff is up there with Peyton Manning and Tom Brady in terms of being that good with play action fakes. He really sells it. Baker Mayfield gave him a bunch of props today as well for doing just that, of just really selling those play action fakes. And the analytics, you know, people out there, they're going to say, well, you don't have to run the ball to use play action effectively. And that's true. But any NFL linebacker will tell you that if a running game is working, it makes play action even that much more effective, because you can't cheat. You can't sit there and take one step, right, and then do your drop. You know, you're reading your key, one step drop, whatever they think that's going to pass. No, you got to like literally step and wait and look at your gap and make sure there's not a running back coming through that hole, and then you got to fill it, right? And that's where Jared Goff gets you, is he does such a good job faking that he makes you think it's going to be run, and then boom, it's a pass. And so it's going to be a challenge, right? The Lions will run the ball relentlessly, and David Montgomery is a back that he doesn't care if he gets 3 yards or 30. He will keep mashing and bashing that hole until something breaks. And he's a very patient runner, and I don't mean patient like like, waiting for the hole to open. He's not patient in that means. But what I mean is, he doesn't care if the 100-yard game comes with 17 carries or 27 carries or 37 carries. He doesn't care about the average. He just cares about getting positive yards, picking up first downs, and scoring touchdowns. Speaking of touchdowns, the Lions don't settle for field goals. That has the Bucs' attention. Their red zone offense is phenomenal. The Bucs' red zone defense is phenomenal, second in the league. So something's got to give. I think this is the game, if you want to really boil it down to who's going to win, the team that scores more touchdowns than field goals. And on paper, that's the Lions. 18 touchdowns this season on offense, not including the Brian Branch touchdown in week 1. 18 on offense, 5 field goals. That's astonishing. That's why the Lions are just a hair under 30 points per game. Conversely, the Buccaneers have scored 8 offensive touchdowns, not 18, but 8, and they've settled for 7 field goals. That's the sign of a new offense, a new quarterback, a brand new play caller, a revamped offensive line, figuring things out through the first 4 weeks of the season. So I think if this game was played in week 1 or week 2 or week 3, I don't see how the Bucs beat the Lions. But maybe with getting 26 points on the board against the Saints, which is their highest offensive output to date, maybe that gives this offense some confidence that if it does become a shootout on Sunday, maybe they can hang with the Lions a little bit. But this defense in Tampa Bay, they've got to hold the Lions to field goals, which is something that really just hasn't happened yet in Detroit.
What's going on, guys? Miko here from Pride of Detroit. Thanks for taking the time to check out this clip from our most recent POD live stream. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see where the conversation went from here, all you have to do is click the link in the description that'll take you over to our Twitch channel. And once you're on our Twitch channel, be sure to drop us a follow or a subscribe if you're so inclined. That way you can be notified anytime we go live and be a part of our live audience, which means that you may be privy to content that doesn't always make it onto the audio version of the podcast or even onto YouTube. Also, if you're more inclined and you prefer an audio version of our live streams, you can click the links to both Spotify or Apple Music, which will take you to their platform, and you can download the entire audio version of the podcast and listen to it whenever you want to. Again, we appreciate you guys and thank you for the support. Be sure to leave a like, a comment, and subscribe to this channel if you're new, and we will be sure to keep bringing you amazing Lions content.